that we support, and also a couple of success stories, take you a little bit through the history of our program, and hopefully address any of the questions that you may have at the end. Next. All right, so like I said, we are going to be talking about research grants, fellowships, and awards. First, we're going to provide you with a brief overview of our program. We're going to highlight a few success stories, review the current opportunities for funding for 2022, and then briefly describe the process of application, which we're currently undergoing revision to make it easier, not only for the applicants, but also for our reviewers. But before we continue, of course, we have to stop and say thank you, because funding for all these grants and all these programs is possible by individual donors, private donors, NHF chapters, industry partners. So thank you all for making this possible. Next. Just to keep us grounded and focused on everything that we do here at NHF, we'd like to start with our mission. And this mission was recently changed to reflect a little bit better what we do. And so currently, as it stands, is the National Hemophilia Foundation is dedicated to finding cures for inheritable blood disorders and to addressing and preventing the complications of these disorders through research, education, and advocacy, enabling people and families to thrive. Next. And so we here in our research department, we understand and we're fully aware that a world without inheritable blood disorders, while we're finding those cures, everything begins with research. So for us, we are always focused on advancing person-centric research to enable people and families with inheritable blood disorders to thrive. So not only focusing on the ultimate goal of curing these disorders and having a world free of them, but also carrying them through the journey, ensuring that they can thrive in today's world. Next. Also, to orient you a little bit of other things that we do, because our department is not solely focused on our grants and our awards. I'll briefly describe our main projects or main initiatives that we also oversee in our department. So we are the primary overseers of Community Voices in Research, or CVR. This is a patient-facing registry that collects information not only from the person who's diagnosed, but also their immediate family members, with the idea of trying to understand what does it really mean to live with the bleeding disorders. It provides this information back to the participants in a way that hopefully makes them want to be more active members of their healthcare team, and also provides an instrument for researchers to really go in deep into the patient experience, the family experience, and understand health reported outcomes from their perspectives. Of course, like I said, we're going to be looking a little bit more into the grants, awards, and fellowships, because we are the administrators of those awards in our department. We're also involved in a national research blueprint, and this is an effort that really stemmed from a Blue Sky initiative that NHF conducted at the very beginning of Len's tenure within NHF. So believe it or not, about a year and a half ago, that led to the SOS, the SOS the summit was done in September of last year, which was a process by which we harnessed the community, the expertise of the community within the bleeding disorders community, but outside of it, in the outside research community. We also had members of the interdisciplinary team within doctors, researchers, nurses, social workers, physical therapists, genetic counselors, within our HTC network, outside of HTC networks, chapters, and HFA or member organization, and more importantly, SMEs. We're calling SMEs are the subject matter expert, or our patients, our family members, who are, again, giving that very important perspective of the real-to-real issue, day-to-day issues of our community members. So now that the research priorities were identified through the SOS, that happened last September, we're now embarking into the National Research Blueprint. So taking this these priorities that we're identifying, trying to come up of ways of making them a reality, make easy ways to research them, involving, again, SMEs and all the community members to really understand and get behind it, get involved in research, but also trying to harness the power of all the instruments that we have at our disposal that we're currently using for research, and see if we can do it in a more cohesive and organized manner, and create those systems that don't exist. We also conduct our own research, whether it's within the National Hemophilia Foundation, but also with outside researchers, whether it's nationally or international. We did an international COVID survey with a couple of our colleagues from Germany and the UK. We're also very much involved in the dissemination of this information. What are we finding? Trying to add to that body of knowledge to advance the science within our community. We have embarked in another initiative called Advanced Therapy Medicinal Products, or ATMP. They're pretty much like roundtables in which we bring expertise from within the community to discuss future projects, future therapies, anything that's in the landscape that is being studied or is that is about to come out, so that we can discuss and get informed, educate each other. Research journal clubs, it's something that we're going to be doing about quarterly. We did a couple of them that were highly successful last year. Again, any of these things are open to the community, and we select a couple of articles that are new, that are relevant, that are interesting, that are thought-provoking, and then we discuss them either with the authors or with people who are expert in the field. And of course, we have many other things, but these are all the main things that you can find also more information in our website. And Sam will tell you a little bit more about that later. So again, focusing on the awards and the grants program, we are committed to advancing discoveries in inherited blood disorders research. And we do that by stimulating breakthroughs and innovations, by investing in developing and advancing hematologists' clinical and research careers, and by promoting health equity, because we know that that's incredibly important, not only within the clinical and the research members, but also within our community. So NHF Research grants support research in not only biological mechanisms of inheritable blood disorders, but also in their related comorbidities. So for an example of that would be joint disease or pain. We also focus on novel therapies, translational science, clinical advances, quality of life, and again, health equity. Next. So we do that by focusing at all levels of expertise and in all disciplines within the Hemophilia Treatment Center network. Next. So you see here that we have our 5 main awards: the JGP, the Jean-Marie Lusher Career Development Innovative Investigator, and the Bridge Award. Next. So the Judith Graham Poole Postdoctoral Fellowship. This is tailored for the early researchers, and it's usually basic science, bench science, the science that is conducted in our laboratories. So it's clinical research, and it's been awarded since 1972. So we're very proud to be celebrating 50 years of the JGP. The award is for $52,000 a year for 2 years. The Jean-Marie Lusher Diversity Fellowship, it's a newer award. It's been awarded since 2023, and it also for $52,000 a year for 3 years. And this in particular is targeted for early researchers, but from diverse backgrounds. We understand that we need to increase the diversity, not only of our clinicians, but also our researchers that are really a representative of our community. So this was tailored to trying to pique the interest of early researchers from that diverse background and bring them into hematology, benign hematology field. And also trying to not only recruit them, but also retain them in the workforce. The Career Development Award is for the mid-level researchers. These are innovative research in subcellular, cellular, animal, or human levels. It's been awarded since the 2000s, and this was $70,000 a year for 3 years, so a little bit longer. The IIR, the Investigator Research Award, is for any discipline within the HTC. So in here, we're including nurses, physical therapists, social workers, genetic counselors, anybody within the HTC. And the idea, again, is to focus on novel technologies, advancement in therapies, anything that can help with health-related quality of life issues in our population. It's been awarded since 2018, and this one is for $60,000 for 1 year, which could be extended by 6 months. So the Bridge Award, this is one of our newest too, and this is one of our most exciting ones, I think, because of what it does. So this is for the experienced researcher, that researcher that has done a lot of research within our community, is excited to continue. They have applied for the big NIH grants, the big awards that the government gives, or an equivalent federal grant, but we're denied funding. You know, we know funding is limited, so sometimes our researchers get stuck there. So what we do is we fund them for an additional year. We give them $125,000. And the idea is that they can now beef up that application. They can get more data. They can, solidify those aims, those hypotheses, and then apply again. And hopefully in the next cycle, get the award. And it's focused on basic translational and patient-oriented research as well. We have the Excellence Fellowships. These are new to our department, but definitely not new to NHF. We provide $15,000 once a year, and these fellowships are specifically for nurses, social workers, or physical therapy, and can focus on advances in training, career development, clinical care, educational programs. Again, anything that can help us take those patients, allow them to thrive while we're looking for that cure, right? That world without inheritable blood disorders. And then, even though we are not in charge of the Takeda Clinical Fellowships, Neil's department in provider education provides $100,000 a year for 2 years to physician hand-on clinical and research experience training in highly regarded HTCs. So although this is not necessarily a research award, it demonstrates, I put it in here because it demonstrates NHF commitment to not only finding these talented researchers or clinicians and bring them into our world of excitement and discovery, but also provide them with a network of mentorship and in collaboration so that they can continue, so that they remain within our community. Next. And so lastly, before Samantha begins with her part of the presentation, I just want to take you through history so that you see how many awards we've given in the past few years. So again, JGP, the Judith Graham Poole Award, we've given 106 awards since 1972. So this is our oldest award, one that we're most proud of, and one that has resulted in incredible research findings that have revolutionized, hemophilia care and bleeding disorders care in general. Jean Marie Lusher Diversity Award, again, is one of their new ones, and we've awarded 2 since 2021. We have the CDA, the Career Development Award. We've awarded 29 of those since the 2000s. And this award in particular, we were giving it about every 2 to 3 years. It's not until recently that we've begun giving it once a year. The Bridge Award, again, one of our newer ones. We've awarded 2 since 2018, and it's really exciting to see how these researchers who are right there, they're very close to getting that R01 NIH award, and either because of the Bridge Award or in the process of being awarded the Bridge Award, then they get called, they get that phone call and they say, you received the NIH funding. So, this is very exciting to be part of that movement. So Innovative Investigative Research Award is another one of our newer. It started in 2017 and we've awarded 6 since then. And again, the Excellence Fellowships that were transitioned to our department last year, but historically, we've given 13 of the nursing since 2008, 10 in the physical therapy since 2011, and 15 to the social worker since 2006. You can see that the social worker is definitely the one that we started the program with. And again, Sam is going to take you through our website so that you can see where to find more information about these programs. But there's the link in there in case you want to take a picture or something. Sam,
thank you.
Take it away,
Maria. Thank you, Maria. So we're going to move into the past awardees and the 2001 process for our grants, fellowships, and awards. So in 2021, we had a very busy year. We awarded 10 awards, 3 JGP, 2 JMLs, 1 career, 1 IIR, and then 1 of each of the Excellence Fellowships, nursing, physical therapy, and social work. One of which is a multidisciplinary, which is really great to see nursing and social work working together to try to increase the quality of life for folks with inheritable blood disorders. For those of you who might not be aware, here's a little historical information about JGP. Dr. Poole in 1965 discovered a method that changed the landscape of treatment for folks with inheritable blood disorders. And this walks through, and a lot of this information is on our website, walks through what that history is. The first JGP award through NHF was provided to Dr. Wise in 1972 at University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And since that time frame, it has funded over 106 JGPs. So we're very excited to see that moving forward. And we could not do that without our donors and our chapters. So thank you. We'll walk through who we awarded funding to for JGP and et cetera in the next few slides. And all of this can be found on our website. And we'll tell you how you can get to that and search from some of our previously funded researchers towards the end of our program today. So Dr. Zhang from Cleveland Clinic, she is focusing on the rules of the B domain in regulating the synthesis and secretion of factor VIII. She was awarded in 2021, as was Dr. Srivastava at Cleveland Clinic with the rescue of factor VIII mutation, expression by translational and post-translational modulation using small molecular therapy. And then Dr. Quinn at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia is focusing on the antibody mediated factor V, factor Va, resistance and therapeutic approaches for hemophilia. Our 2001 Career Development Award went to Dr. Benjamin Samuelson Jones, and he is also at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and he's focusing on protein engineering for optimizing factor VIII in hemophilia A. And finally, we have our IIR for 2021. We have Dr. Kumskova from University of Iowa. She is focusing on platelet dysfunction in Eldros diagnosed patients with bleeding phenotypes. Last year was a very exciting year for us to launch our Jean Marie Lusher Diversity Fellowship Award. And with the help of Takeda, we were able to support 2 applicants and awardees in 2021. Dr. Lusher diagnosed a young girl in 1961 with a rare instance of hemophilia. And her work across her lifespan and her career trajectory really impacted an amazing part of the landscape of hemophilia treatment in our community. The focus of this award is to recruit a diverse population into the benign hematology research and retain them so that they're not necessarily going into other avenues, but really focusing on the blood disorders that are non-cancerous for research. So our first awardee for the Jean Marie Lusher Diversity Fellowship in 2021 was Dr. Johnson. She's from Baylor College of Medicine, and she's focusing on determining clinical severity and modular profiles for acute chest syndrome for sickle cell disease. Our second award went to Dr. Oli from University of Washington, and she is looking at a prospective study for clinical imaging and assessment of cognitive function and its association with anemia in adults with sickle cell disease as well. So how do you navigate our website and look at the research that we've funded, the research that's going on? We're going to walk through our website real quick. So this is a snapshot of the tab for the research department. First and foremost, on the top right-hand side, you'll see that you can go to the main page on any of the sites or any of the pages, excuse me, for the hemophilia.org. And you can go to events and view previous Wednesday webinars that have some of the NHF funded researchers presenting on their advances in research in the IBD community, the inheritable blood disorder community. You can have the opportunity to view some of the research presentations. Maria's done several on there that are phenomenal, etc. So some of the state of the science, the SOS she was referring to, and some of the outcomes for CVR. So if you go to that events tab on the right-hand side, you'll be able to view previous webinars. When you go to the research tab, you'll be able to go, we'll go from right to left, the National Research Blueprint that Maria mentioned. There's a website that explains what that looks like and how we're constructing it and what those plans are moving forward. There will be updates on that. Community of Voices in Research, again, that registry for our patients and family members or our subject matter experts, as we like to refer to them at NHF. What CVR is and how you could potentially recommend having your patients at an HCC or your chapter members engage in that opportunity for research as well. The funding for research, you'll see each of those tabs will explain in detail what that award is, what the criteria is, the eligibility, the requirements, and what the process is for application, and some of the history behind each of them. And then they also link to the funded by NHF, and that's the highlighted one with the arrow on the left-hand side under the research projects. You can view past and present researchers funded by NHF through that portion of our website. And it's a very easy, user-friendly, searchable option. You can type in your key phrases, which grant it is, what area of research you're looking for. It's a wealth of knowledge. So what are our funding opportunities for 2022? Again, another plug for our website. If you look at the subscribe portion of the top bar on any of our portions of our website, you can subscribe for real-time e-blasts for a variety of different topics. From the research department, we hope that you'll sign up to get notifications of future funding. So on the right-hand side, I kind of blew that up a little bit so you could see, you can select different topics that you'd like information and emails on. Fund Your Research is the tab that goes through each of the individual grants and fellowship opportunities and will outline what those eligibility criteria are. For 2022, we have these four main opportunities. We are evaluating this year our overall grant program, what's worked really well, where would we love to grow, what opportunities do we have to partner with other community colleagues that are also funding researchers in the inheritable blood disorder arena, and really updating that process. So in 2022, we're offering a few less of our awards, but we are taking that time and really focusing to grow our programming for 2023, and that will be announced later this year. We're calling that the deep dive. If you hear anybody reference it, that's our overview and what we're doing to really enhance our programming and services. So the JGP and the JML are the top two boxes, and those are our basic science and preclinical research. The JGP is for inheritable blood disorders, and the JML is inheritable blood disorders in the landscape of hemophilia, but also other non-malignant, so the benign hematology research that we were talking about a little bit earlier. The letters of intent deadline is on February 7th, and then the application deadline is March 21st for both of those. The Bridge Award will be in our cycle 2 this year, so please stay tuned to our e-blast if you sign up for them, or our website in May or June. We will be announcing those deadlines for that application. And then the Excellence Fellowships have changed a little bit, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But we only have an application this year. We do not have a letter of intent for the Excellence Awards. So for nursing, physical therapy, social work, there is an opportunity for that application. There is not a letter of intent, and that deadline is on March 21st. So what's changed? Well, we've revised with our colleagues over in communications and in our technical team here at NHF, and we're so grateful to help streamline the process for our applications. So our applications are now, the letter of intent is submitted online right on our website. So you'll go to either the JGP or the JML, and you'll go down, it's right, I believe it's listed under the eligibility criteria. You'll see this box that you have on the right-hand side. And that button that says submit your letter of intent, a form will pop up that you can input all the information in the form, and you can upload a document, which is your actual letter of intent. The letter of intent criteria is on the left-hand side of your screen, and that automatically goes to us at the research team. And then we will respond to you shortly and go through the next steps. As I mentioned, we do not have a LOI for the Excellence Fellowships this year. Same criteria, it goes underneath the eligibility, the deadlines area, you can request an application. That button pulls up a form, you fill out the form, and that gets automatically sent to NHF, and we'll process it as soon as we receive it. So what happens after we get your application? Well, we have a peer review process, and it is modeled after the NIH. It is a rigorous peer review process with specialists in the field specific to the project or proposed research that is in the application. It's a confidential panel, and they follow the NIH guidelines and format for reviewing the applications, looking at significance, approach, innovation, investigator, and environment. That information is aggregated, sent back to NHF as recommendations for funding or non-funding or clarification of funding. And then moving forward from there, the awardee is notified of the outcome of that review and provided with constructive feedback if there are areas for improvement or growth for grantsmanship or professional application, or discussion of moving forward with contracting for the funding and the award. Then we work with our communications team to make sure that we are communicating in the community who was awarded and where we can put that on our social media, etc. Our communications team also created a toolkit for our awardees last year to really help the institutions use the same language that we use at NHF to be as clear as possible with the community regarding those announcements. With that, I believe we will turn it back to Brett for any discussion.
Great. Thank you both so much. We appreciate you taking the time to come on. We do have several questions that have come in, and I will do my best to try to stump you here, but I don't think I'm going to be able to. So the first question comes in. Let me go through and find it here. What are some of the tips for putting together a winning proposal? Or do you have any that you can offer?
Maria?
I'll be happy to. So we recognize, for example, last year that some of the awards that we were providing, there was a lot of questions on how to submit a proposal. So what we did was we targeted we started with the fellowships, the nursing, the social worker, and the physical therapy fellowships. And we created a PowerPoint and then later recorded it. And it's actually placed on our YouTube channel. And it's also placed on the fellowship pages. So in each one of the fellowship pages, we have a presentation that kind of runs through what it is that we ask and keys and ideas and how to make that a strong proposal. You know, and it's basically just like any other application for a research project. So you have to have research that actually indicates the need for your research study, right? Tell us a little bit about that background information, that knowledge up to that point that has led you to think that your research project is going to not only add to the body of knowledge, but advance the science a little bit more, right? So you need to have a good background information. Then, of course, you have to determine what is it that your objectives, what are you trying to accomplish with that research. Then you're going to talk about the aims. You're going to talk about how you're going to study that population. What is the intervention that you're going to go to do, to do that, and then what you hope that will result in. We also ask questions like if you have a mentor, who that mentor is. This is especially important when you have early researchers that are starting either to research in our field, research period, or perhaps are part of the interdisciplinary team that doesn't have really a strong background in research. And that helps us understand, okay, maybe this person doesn't have a strong research background, but it's willing to work with a mentor that is going to help them, carry this research forward. So those are the kind of things that we're looking for. Everything should be, very succinctly written, very focused. It should transmit the message very clearly. It should, if you're applying for one of the, for the basic science awards, you really need to be very specific as how in the methods, how you're going to find, if you're using an animal model, if you're using a cellular model, what it is that how you're going to use it, and what are the markers that you are going to be evaluating to make sure that you accomplish your aim. So it definitely, because of our portfolio, like you said, is so vast and so varied, and it's for different degrees of research experience, that it really depends on who that person is, what the project looks like, and if it's a basic science versus a clinical versus an educational project. But if I can give you any piece of advice, is that it should be as clearly and as thorough as possible, so that the person that's the reviewer, or the person, anybody in our department that is moving the application forward, has a really clear idea of what it is that you're thinking, and how you're going to accomplish that. We at the research department are always happy to help. Obviously, we're not going to write a proposal for you, because that would not be appropriate. But we're happy to find resources. We have a ton. That's why we put so much information in our website, not only of past awardees, but what their projects were like, their conclusions. We try to be as supportive and provide as many resources as we can, so that you have a good idea of what it is that you're supposed to be doing when applying. But again, if you ever have any questions, just reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to guide you through the process.
Thanks, Maria. Appreciate that. Next question that comes in. Aside from the website, how are these grants shared within the medical community to increase participation in applicants?
Sam, I think that you can talk about our efforts to recruit people from all walks of life, basically.
Absolutely. Last year, we spent a lot of time looking at what our recruitment strategy was in the past, and working with the communications team, with our health equity and inclusion team, and evaluating how we are reaching out to our colleagues that are also providing similar funding opportunities. So we met with HTRS, we met with ASH, we met with Foundation for Women and Girls, and we looked at how can we provide more information to the community, accessible in the time frame of which they need to apply appropriately for the right grants, right? So we reached out to over 50 universities and institutions that really focused on accelerating and advancing underserved populations in education for benign hematology research. We spent a lot of time out with that outreach, working in the community and engaging and really honing in how we can focus on recruitment and retention. Additionally, we kept the methods that we know work very well. The e-blasts, communicating with the folks through the HTCs and the chapters, but then we also added the colleagues, as I mentioned before, as well as NIH for those bridge grant opportunities for people who might not have had funding, but have the opportunity to apply for the bridge through NHF.
Great, thanks, Sam. Appreciate that. And I'm going to ask this question to both of you and ask you both to weigh in here. I think this is a great question, but is there a particular research project that you believe produced some of the most outstanding work, or some of the work that was most interesting to you?
Oh boy, that you told us that you were not going to stump us. What is this, Brett?
I'm trying.
You know, many what is interesting is that if you look at these awards throughout the years, it's easy to find progression of the science at some level, and even if they're not completely connected one with each other, you can definitely see a progression of the science. So Samantha was speaking in the very beginning that JGP, the Judith Graham, was able to identify factor from the cryoprecipitate. People used to throw away cryoprecipitate, like there was really no use for that. They were studying, other parts of the of plasma, and so the way that she was able to isolate the factors, and then if you look at the progression of where we are now with, we're at the brink of gene therapy, right? That we are able to not only isolate and produce the proteins in the lab, but we can also truncate them and then put them in a viral vector and then, inject it into a person with the hope that it's going to, to take and produce all the, whatever factor it is that we're doing. For me, that's really interesting to see the science of it. I think that, especially when you're looking at basic science, it's really hard to just pinpoint at one, just because one finding might be, on its own may not tell you much. And to tell you the truth, thankfully, I'm very grateful that I should have said that at the very beginning, to our reviewers, to that panel of reviewers that year after year and cycle after cycle were called upon to lend their expertise, because many of these projects are far beyond my comprehension. And so when they were asking, how do you write a good proposal? Well, you're writing it for these experts that are experts in the field. They are actually questioning, how are you going to get to that conclusion? How are you going to study? How are they going to market that? So I sidetracked a little bit, but I don't want to not mention how grateful we are to this group of physicians and researchers and clinicians that year after year hear our call and come to help us review. So that was a long-winded explanation, but it's really hard to pinpoint just one research. I think that all research is important for many, many reasons, all projects.
I would agree with you. And I also really, it's amazing to see the landscape of this bleeding disorder community look at going from a fatal diagnosis to a chronic health condition. And the evaluation, we're seeing a lot of research with the quality of life initiatives, what it's like to live with an inheritable blood disorder, how we can help that quality of life, and how we can empower subject matter experts to engage in their creation of future research. So I'm not going to pinpoint a specific award or person that I would say that is my favorite, because it isn't, but I tend to go more towards the quality of life, because historically I'm a social worker. So the science part is vastly over my head, and I'm so thankful for all of the researchers that help us with the peer reviews, but that quality of life component is critical to moving forward the health and equity of our patients.
Sam, you brought an incredible point that I didn't think, because I was thinking about, the grants that we have funded over the years. But I think that there's a big movement, not only from NHF but within the community, to actually pooling those subject matter experts, pooling, patients that not only have a diagnosis, but also their family members, because, we really haven't really understood that well. And I think there's a trove of information that we can see through to find new, to identify new questions and new areas of study to, again, those quality of life, those very tangibles here and now moments that that can actually improve the lives of those living with inheritable blood disorders. So thank you for bringing that up, because I think that's a very important, very valid point.
Great. Thank you both for weighing in on that. I appreciate it. Next question that comes in. Aside from grants, how else could we foster more research, especially from the allied healthcare field? It's a tough one.
You know, it is and it isn't. Oh, Sam, you want to go ahead? You want me to start? I'm sure you'll have great feedback also. So we, like I said, we at NHF are very supportive of the allied fields because again, they generally don't have very strong research, formation in school. And so we've tried through our awards and through making ourselves available and through the resources that we put on our website to really support and encourage the allied fields. I think that if you look at those webinars that I was telling you about, you'll see how great these research projects are. And, you know, these allied professionals have very unique expertise in their fields. You know, again, it's a different perspective to the same problem, and that can be addressed in a different way to actually benefit and improve the quality of the care that we provide for our patients, and identify quality of life issues that perhaps we can address as well as a community. So I would encourage you to go and look for those webinars, those recordings that are in our website, because they give great example of ideas that generated in the clinic, or that generated, as they were educating patients, or that, it was just like that one aha moment that you're like, oh, nobody has really looked at this in our population. And I wonder if it's comparable to other community or other populations or the normal population. So I think that that we are committed as an organization to support those allied fields, and through the working groups have been amazing. NHF working groups, whether it's nursing, social worker, physical therapy, they're really interested in encouraging their field to get engaged in research and other projects. So I think that they have the potential. I think that all they need is a little idea, or a big idea that seems little at the time, but it grows into something great, and a little bit of mentorship that, we at NHF will provide the support, but we'll also, if not, hook them up with a professional researcher that has done this in the past, and maybe that could serve as mentor to carry this projects forward. So that's one of the most exciting parts about this awards program, it's how encompassing it is. It's not just looking at the PhD, it's not just looking at the at the MD researcher, but it's actually getting that expert knowledge, getting that expertise from the different disciplines into this research of culture that we want. And most importantly, of course, is everything's focusing or centered around our patients, right? Those SMEs, subject matter experts that we need. We're starting to, not starting to recognize it, but starting to really purposefully think of ways that we can engage our subject matter experts in all things research within NHF, everything that we're involved in. So stay tuned, more to come about that.
To add on to that, Maria, I think that I would say that the allied health professionals, the social workers, physical therapy, and nursing are critical to that evaluation of if and when subject matter experts want to participate in CVR, Community Voices in Research, our registry. We have virtual advisory panels that we have an opportunity for SMEs, subject matter experts, to sit and advise industry leaders or nonprofit organizations on recommendations for research. So that conduit of being in the clinic and working with patients as a physical therapist or a nurse or a social worker really engages them in active research.
Great. Thank you both. There are a few more questions that come in, so I'm going to keep you on for a little bit longer here. Does a well-known researcher need to be added to the proposal for it to be competitive, or will you look at all applications blinded?
Applications are not blinded because if you remember, one of the slides that Samantha provided as to the criteria that we use to evaluate the awards, they're based on the NIH criteria, the same criteria that the NIH utilizes to evaluate their awards. It's the same one that we use. And so part of that criteria is to ensure that the researcher has experience, that the researcher is working in a lab that has experience, that has a mentor that has, especially in the early, right, in the early applications. When you're talking about mid-level career researchers or the experienced researcher, their own ability and track record stands on its own. But when you're at the very beginning of the process, as an early researcher, we want to fund research that is successful. And part of that success comes with the mentorship that person has, the lab or the environment that person is in. Are they going to give them protected time to really focus on the research project? That is part of the evaluation. So unfortunately, for those reasons, we cannot blind the applications per se. And so, like I told you before, each award is so unique in the focus, in the stage of, in the science, if it's early science, late science, transitional science, translational science, if it's an educational program or a clinical program, for the allied sciences. So again, each of the awards is so unique that it really depends on what you're doing. Obviously, it just, the science has to match with the person conducting the study and the environment where that study is going to be conducted. So it's a combination of everything.
It should also be noted, yeah, that's a really good point, Maria, and I also think it should be noted that the professionalism of the peer review committee, they really take into consideration any concerns with conflict of interest. And that's part of the reason why it's not blinded, so that they can have that full conversation disclosure of who should be on that peer review committee and do a remarkable job and do it justice when they're doing that review.
Exactly. So we'll never have the instance in which somebody from one institution is reviewing an applicant from, a cycle that includes a person from that institution, for example, right? Because that would constitute a conflict of interest. So yes, thank you for pointing that out. That's also a very important topic. So again, the review process is anonymous in that we don't advertise who's in the panel, and that changes a lot based on the topics or what the application looks like. So for example, if we have an application that is looking at von Willebrand's disease and from the molecular aspect, for example, or they're looking at animal models, or they were actually looking for people who have expertise in that same area of study. So our review panel is always different, and it's always based on who has applied and what kind of projects they have applied with. And so so from that stance, it is anonymous in that nobody knows who the reviewers are. But in another important point that we haven't made is that process, although it's very strict and it's very objective, and it's, again, we want to make sure that we are funding research that is solid, that it's sound, and that it's going to be that it's going to be able to be carried through. We provide feedback to those applicants who do not get the award, let's say because funding doesn't, we don't have but one to fund that cycle or two to fund that cycle, because all that is based on how much financial resources we have. But that person that didn't get it, we make very conscientious effort to provide a written report on how to improve that application, so that next time, or either within NHF, hopefully, or within another organization, they can actually improve the proposal. They can actually improve the methods in which they're thinking of obtaining the findings. So it's actually, and that happens in all, whether you're an early researcher or a late researcher, that feedback that is provided by the review panel is provided to that to that applicant so that you can learn from the process as well. We just don't say, no, sorry, try again. We tell you no because, and hope that they grow from the process and have a better application next time.
Great, thank you. We do have another question that has come in, but before that, there's a message in the chat that I wanted to read out loud from Priscilla, and thank you for putting this, sending this message, Priscilla. As a woman who has factor VIII deficiency and a son with severe VIII deficiency, I applaud the efforts of the researchers because my son would not have reached the age of 51 tomorrow. He would have likely died or been severely disabled. My gratitude to the individuals that take interest in our community. Thanks for saying that, Priscilla. We appreciate that.
Yes, thank you. It makes my hair stand up.
Yeah, you and me both. You and me
Very
both.
exciting.
Last question that comes in here. It says there are many bleeding disorders. How does the committee prioritize proposals? Is it in underserved areas of research or where there aren't a lot of treatments? Just really, how do things get prioritized?
You want to take that, Sam, or you want me to take it?
You're on a roll. Go for it.
All right. So in the past, we had focused, we had priority areas, right? Anything that had to do with inherited bleeding disorders and any comorbidity. So if you've been around for a while, like I have, you remember that we would focus things not only on inheritable blood disorders and therapies, but also we would look, we would fund hepatitis, projects on hepatitis, projects on HIV, products of, like literally focus on those important comorbidities. So what we're doing now is we're doing kind of sort of the same, right? So any proposal that comes has to be under the auspice of inherited bleeding disorders. We're now in some of our awards, we're actually expanding that a little bit, especially in our diversity awards, because we understand there's so much need and so much underrepresentation in benign hematology as a whole. So not only bleeding disorders, but also, for example, sickle cell, that we've kind of broadened the scope a little bit more on those. So there's always those topic or those focus areas that are relevant to our community as a whole. But now, like Samantha said, now we're thinking about taking a really good look at our portfolio of awards. We're reviewing each one of them, reviewing the amount that we're giving, reviewing the mechanism by which we give it. Should we give less for more money? Should we do, should we continue doing what we're doing? And the National Hemophilia Foundation now has identified priority action areas that are, we're looking at to make sure, not because they're more important, but because we feel they need a little bit more attention. So some of those things, for example, are mental health, rare bleeding disorders, telemedicine, future therapies, and I'm forgetting one more. Is it Heidi, or I'm forgetting one more? So anyway, so maybe, as we give this deep dive into our research grants program as a whole, maybe those are the focus areas that will tie in to make sure that there's well representation. We don't want research to go just to one particular area within our community. We wanted to make it a little bit more equal and better distributed. So as we take a deep dive of all of our research grants, I think it'll be interesting to see, what bubbles to the top as priorities, focus areas in our grants.
And really working with our colleagues across the whole community and what other organizations are prioritizing and how we can partner together and advance the science together.
Sure.
That's a great point, Sam. Collaboration is key when it comes to this. Well, I'd like to thank each of you, Sam and Maria, for taking the time to join us this afternoon. We appreciate your time and your expertise and some really great information. So thank you for presenting this afternoon. I'd like to also thank each and every one of you for joining us. And please note that the recorded webinar will be available to the community on Friday, January 25th at hemophilia.org under the events tab with all of our other archive webinars. Thank you again for joining us, and have a great rest of your week, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.